Vancouver Point Grey.
Madam Speaker, be it resolved that this House encourages the government to pursue policies that promote purchasing from British Columbia businesses. I'll just begin by presenting to this House the rather common sense notion that this province will benefit the more that our government and British Columbians buy local products. On the government side, according to the 2013 estimates, this government spends $1 billion on things like vehicles, materials, and services across the province. This doesn't even count the many investments in similar products made by universities, colleges, and hospitals every year. With the potential to link this funding to skills development and training, environmental goals, capacity building for local businesses and early stage entrepreneurs, as well as economically challenged regions across this province, one would think that there would be a carefully thought out plan about how to target this huge amount of government spending to achieve those goals. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. In the Provincial Purchasing Handbook, this is the handbook given to provincial government employees about how to spend taxpayer dollars, the word local is mentioned just twice, and neither time to direct employees to consider the implications of purchasing locally. A great amount of time and attention in the handbook is spent to scaring provincial employees that if they don't treat all vendors fairly, quote unquote, no matter where the firm is located and no matter how they operate, that the province could be sued. While certainly we have legal obligations to treat people who are quoting on BC contracts fairly, no question. But these agreements that we're subject to, trade agreements and other laws, are also, they also have principled exceptions for economic development programs. And they also allow this province to consider the true financial cost of everything that we're buying with taxpayer dollars. A BC-based firm, Madam Speaker, would be paying its, any profits that it made from a government contract would be paying corporate taxes in British Columbia. Workers who worked on those contracts would pay their income taxes to the province of BC. Carbon taxes generated in the manufacturing or service process would be paid to BC. If you compare that to, for example, an Ontario firm is paying its taxes on its profits to the Government of Ontario. Payroll taxes in Ontario paid to the Government of Ontario. So in short, BC receives some portion of every government contract awarded in this province back directly through taxes paid to this government. It seems to me that it makes basic sense to consider that in doing the math about how much a contract actually costs this province in awarding it. This issue is not discussed at all in the purchasing handbook. I think that it's critically important as well, Madam Speaker, that we don't just look at the government spending side, but we also look at the consumer spending side in BC, and how do we encourage British Columbians, like the people in the gallery in the House today, to buy more British Columbia goods. And I'm not just talking about agricultural goods, but all kinds of goods across our province. This government, though, and it should be recognized, has proposed spending of $2 million to promote the purchase of local agricultural goods in British Columbia, and this is a wonderful initiative. But it's important to recognize that the value, the $2 million value of this promotional initiative is less than 1/10 of what this government spent promoting India's film industry. So that really puts into perspective the priority that this government places on promoting local products and the room for growth in promoting what could be a huge boon for our agricultural industry. I think it's also important to recognize that British Columbians, when they invest $1 in a BC business, that returns 67 cents back to the provincial economy. But if they invest $1 in a large chain-based business that's based outside BC, just 43 cents comes back to the provincial economy. A lot of British Columbians don't know that, and I think that it's critical that we do more to encourage British Columbians to understand the importance of how, when they invest their dollar in a business, how it affects their local economy, and how we can minimize the number of vacant storefronts in business areas across this province. The benefits of promoting local purchasing in government, as well as at home for BC residents, are considerable. The required investment is very small. Less than 1/10 of what this government spent, for example, promoting itself through the BC budget is what's proposed to be spent. But I do think that we can do much more.
Thank you, member.
And I hope that I'm supported in that on the other side of the House. Thank you.
Member for Peace River South.
So thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thanks to the member for bringing this forward for us. I'm happy to hear actually that the member agrees with us in what this government is doing in promoting BC businesses and how that's going to build our economy and our province. Our government recognizes that allowing the opportunities and creating a positive investment climate for business in BC is what's going to create jobs that are supporting the families. And small business plays a major role in our province, which is why we're streamlining government procurement processes that will generate more bid activity for small businesses. And Madam Speaker, as most people have heard, and to the honourable member, our government is committed to establishing a minimum 20% increase in small business procurement going forward. We're going to continue lowering taxes and cutting red tape so that we can create more opportunities for businesses in BC so they can thrive. Our government is committed to helping BC farmers and food processors as well to promote their local foods by supporting industry-led marketing campaigns through the Buy Local programs. But Madam Speaker, we recognize that there cannot be a one-size-fits-all program, which could create restrictions or barriers for some companies, which is why these companies need the freedom to promote their products, their goods, as they see best, without restrictions and programs in place which could create complications for them. But government needs to let business run their business, but we can do better in helping promote those businesses. The issue of buying local is one that I can relate to. My goal in my riding has always been to promote our province, to promote my riding, to drive investment into the regions to ensure that we can create more opportunities. Living in a border community, my job has always been to make sure that we have those opportunities so people can stay in BC, they can invest their money in BC, and they can spend their hard-earned money in BC. This is why I'm happy to support the Buy Local program. This program offers successful applicants matching funds of up to $100,000 to launch or expand local food marketing campaigns. Building the local market for BC foods is a key commitment of our government for our agri-food strategy, which is a key component of our BC jobs plan, which will lead agri-food sector growth into a $14 billion a year industry by 2017. We are also adding $2 million to the Buy Local campaign, which will go on top of the original $2 million, which we made a commitment of last year. This will encourage consumers to think about where their food comes from and to continue promoting the 50 and 100 mile diet for British Columbians. Buy Local helps grow family businesses. And a perfect example for myself in my riding is a place called Lawrence's Meats. It's in Dawson Creek. It's been around for decades, and because of their superior service and products, they started local, was supported local, and now they have hundreds of employees serving all of Western Canada. And I know we have opportunities like this all around BC, and we're going to continue promoting this. But Madam Speaker, we established the Small Business Roundtable to engage in dialogue with small business. We developed the Small Business Accord and began an unprecedented process of consultation with small business owners in the fall of 2012. And in 2013, in March, we announced the creation of the Accord, a document that outlines the commitment to BC's small business owners to make BC the most business-friendly jurisdiction in Canada. But I must say, Madam Speaker, when you're spending tax dollars, you must always be looking at the best way and the most cost-effective way of spending those tax dollars, which is why this March we announced that we are looking into appointing a senior official who will be examining current government procurement practices to help us work towards our commitment of the minimum 20% increase in small business procurement from government. So I would say, Madam Speaker, that we're on the right track. We are seeing amazing growth in our province, in business, and amazing partnerships have been created that is seeing investment in every corner of this great province. This investment is creating further opportunity and diversifying our markets and giving us the opportunity to create good-paying jobs, which will in turn support thriving communities and give us the opportunity to continue for people to buy local. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, member, and the member for Saanich South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We've often been told that we have a lot of power as consumers. Collectively choosing products to purchase that represent what we believe in can send a significant message and can shape the marketplace. Putting in place policies that require procurement by our provincial government would help our regional economies, our provincial economy. This is not a new idea, and it bothers me that the current government, who will, at the end of this term, be in power for 16 years, is just catching on to this. This is something that's being practiced in other jurisdictions. Our provincial hospital system is an obvious example of how this could work. The Fraser Valley has some of the best agricultural land in BC. It's home to one of the province's largest health authorities, serving a patient population of about 1.6 million and growing. The hospitals within the southwestern bioregion spend about $50 million on food purchases, meal purchases per year. On this side of the House, we proposed that local procurement for hospitals should be moved to 30% to encourage stable purchasing patterns that would help our agricultural sector, but we would also encourage our processing sector to grow. In Ontario, down in the United States, this is something that's happening. Harvard University is coming out with studies showing that every dollar spent locally, especially in the agricultural sector, stays in the economy. The cost of doing something like this is about 1%, 1 to 2% more, but the multiplier effect is enormous. Fresh produce, fruit, and meat grown and purchased locally also renders a lower carbon footprint. Purchasing local is part of a resiliency plan for climate change. And I often feel that the other side of the House thinks that that is just a feel-good idea, but it's something that we don't have any choice in anymore. It's something that we have to do in order to survive. We're going down a road where we may not be able to source and access some of the products that we're buying globally, and we have to have a foundation of local growing, a stable local growing market right here in BC. It's something that many experts, many scientists are talking about, and it's something that not only you don't have to be a climate change believer to support, you could just be somebody who believes in our local economies. Elsewhere, 33 states and provinces are already putting policies in place for government-funded bodies to do this. And I think that having somebody appointed at this point to study it is sort of a waste of time, because the studies are out there if you're listening. What's the best way of creating jobs and building a stronger economy in British Columbia? Well, many economic development experts and political figures focus on attracting big business to set up shops through tax breaks and subsidies, even though the verdict of economists is that most of these jobs vanish quickly when another region or jurisdiction across the world offers more attractive incentives. The better way to boost the economy, one that is entirely in our control, lies within our own wallets and purchasing patterns. That's been the philosophy behind QPBC's 10% Shift campaign, which encourages consumers to shift 10% of their spending to locally owned businesses and services. Studies all over North America have demonstrated how much additional economic activity is generated by making this simple shift in spending habits. The Shift campaign has been partnering with Chambers of Commerce, the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, among others, to show business owners and consumers alike how important purchasing decisions are to local economies. For every $100 spent in a non-locally owned business, $57 leaves the economy quite soon. If you spend $100 in a local business, $68 stays within our communities. And I think that's significant enough for us to be pushing as a policy within government. One of the ideas that we pushed during the election was an actual 3-point plan for agriculture. And the idea of Buy BC was a provincial marketing program. This is a program that was extremely successful. If you know anything about marketing, you will know that to have a successful marketing program, everybody has to be on the same page. It's been very interesting to watch the current government go through every type of inventive idea to try and replace Buy BC, except for calling it Buy BC.
Thank you, member.
Thank you.
Member for Maple Ridge Pitt Meadows. Is the member speaking from his seat?
Sorry, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, the member opposite suggested that we didn't have a carefully thought out plan. I'd like to assure him we are streamlining the government procurement process, and we will generate more bid activity for small business. We have implemented the Small Business Accord to guide business interaction, government interaction with small business. We are committed to establishing a minimum 20% increase in small business procurement from government. Through the new action plan for small business 2013-2016, we will manage and track government activities supporting small business in this province. In addition to lowering taxes and cutting red tape, our government is committing to helping BC farmers and food producers promote local foods by supporting industry-led marketing campaigns via the Buy Local program. Through the Buy Local program, BC's diverse food processors are given the freedom to promote their products as they see fit, without the restrictions of a one-size-fits-all Buy BC type program. We encourage BC producers to contact the purchasing departments of BC ferries and other large institutions and promote our products. In all health authorities, the contracted food providers do their best to support the local economy and capitalize on fresh food options. Health authorities already source their food locally whenever possible. That includes dairy, baked goods, meats, fruit, vegetables when in season. The BC School Fruit and Vegetable Nutrition Program, the BC Ministries of Agriculture, Education and Health selected the BC Agriculture in the Classroom Foundation to implement a pilot program here in BC. Through the BC School Fruit and Vegetable Nutrition Program, many students are now learning to make fruits and vegetables a part of their regular diet, both at school and at home. They are learning that eating fresh local products supports our farmers and the economies of rural regions. They're also learning firsthand about the health benefits of eating fresh fruit and vegetables while finding out how great they taste. The member opposite suggested that the word local is not used many times by this government. I'd like to assure the member opposite that we do have a policy of promoting local products. The Buy Local program offers successful applicants matching funds up to $100,000 to launch or expand local food marketing campaigns. The provincial government's Buy Local program is administered by the Investment Agriculture Foundation. Building the local market for BC foods is a key commitment of the government's agri-food strategy and is a component of the BC Jobs Plan. It leads the agri-food sector into a $14 billion a year industry by 2017. We're also adding $2 million to the Buy Local campaign, building on the original $2 million commitment in August 2012. This will encourage consumers to think about where their food comes from and promote the 50 and 100-mile diets for British Columbians. The Buy Local program is helping family businesses like the Hopcott Farms in my riding of Pitt Meadows to get beef from their third-generation family farm to the tables of British Columbians. They also are receiving a total of $16,831. This funding is used for several projects with the goal of increasing awareness and sales of local beef in the Lower Mainland. The Buy Local funds will assist in hosting a Meet the Rancher Day at the retail store, presence at the upcoming East Vancouver Trade Show, beef education events, and various agritourism activities to be held at the Hopcott Farms. This will be local beef promotion through print and radio advertising. Our government is also supporting local whole industries in BC awareness to Buy Local. In our area, we also have branding. We now have what we call the true North Fraser brand. It is a colorful image of farmers' fields with mountains in the background. It's a collaborative effort of Pitt Metals, Maple Ridge, and Mission. The BC Shellfish Growers Association is receiving $35,000 to develop promotional materials to be used at trade shows and for website development, including social media tools and a mobile application. To quote the BC Shellfish Growers Association Executive Director Roberta Stevenson, quote, "The contribution from the Buy Local program will give the shellfish farmers of British Columbia an opportunity to market their sustainably grown products locally to retailers, consumers, and BC chefs," end quote. The Okanagan Plant Improvement Corporation, PICO, received $25,000 to assist in building consumer awareness for the Born in BC, Raised in the Okanagan brand, and 2 apples were launched in 2012.
Thank you, Member. Member for Surrey-Walling.
Thank you very much. The late and great urbanist Jane Jacobs wrote a book called The Economy of Cities, where she said that the first principle for a thriving urban economy was import substitution, which may not seem like a great revelation, but I think was a considered and thoughtful view of how economies, particularly urban economies, develop. So, and I think that general principle is applicable to the province as a whole. Now, many people this morning have spoken about agriculture and local purchasing in agriculture, but I do want to cite a study which was referenced in the newspaper Business in Vancouver, which spoke about, it's a study conducted by someone at UBC's Sauder School of Business, and I'm just going to quote briefly from it. The study compared office supply companies and found that local company Mills Basic recirculates 30% of its revenue to other BC businesses and residents. Large office supply chains put between 17 and 19% of their revenue back into the local economy, according to the study. Authors of the study say local governments and school districts should consider putting local buying policies in place instead of focusing solely on price. Now, obviously there are some restrictions, whether the internal trade agreement nationally and there are international trade agreements which limit, unfortunately, the degree to which local municipalities can make those kind of decisions. But certainly the idea that purchasing locally has a dynamic effect on local economies is a powerful one. And perhaps a little counterintuitively, the last president of the Canadian Union of Public Employees, Barry O'Neill, triumphed what he called the 10% solution, which is if every consumer within a given city or town were to increase their purchases from local business as opposed to international or national chains, and I understand they employ people too and spend money in the economy too, but not to the same degree according to this study at UBC Sauder School of Business. The 10% solution would have a really powerful stimulative effect on local economies, both in the short term and the long term. It creates more jobs locally, just by virtue of the revenue being circulated locally. And also it has, as my colleague from Saanich South has pointed out, other effects in terms of reducing the supply chain. Often many national and international businesses source globally through international supply chains, which is expensive and burns fuel and has all the detrimental effects upon the atmosphere that we speak about so frequently. So the 10% solution applied across British Columbia, I think would have a really powerful effect. And that's been taken up by local chambers of commerce, not surprisingly, who represent local business, and even by the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. So, I've attended events where Canadian Federation of Business recently triumphed again local purchasing at local restaurants, which obviously makes sense. again, driving the economic argument that this is beneficial for the economy. So it's good to see that the government is somewhat belatedly coming to this realization. Obviously, there was some unwillingness to continue the Buy BC program back some time ago. It has been re-implemented in some ways, although the name has not been taken up, I suppose probably for purely and crassly political reasons. But I support the resolution. I think the government would be wise, and I think this would have broad and does have broad public support as an important principle within economies that within the British Columbia economy, that local economies, local purchasing can drive economic growth and prosperity. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I thank the member and the member for Caribou, Chilcotin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And what a great topic. And I thank my colleague from across the floor for putting this forward this morning. This means different things to different people, to different levels of government, and how we classify what is local is quite a big topic for all of us. I come from local government. I come from small business. We talk about purchasing local, and we would all love to see that happen. But we have this entity called a consumer. And a consumer will choose where they purchase, what they buy. I've heard my colleagues from across the floor talk about the government of the day spending money outside British Columbia. Spending money outside British Columbia promotes trade, promotes international markets, which then creates jobs in local communities, which then gives the consumer the dollars and cents to buy product. The consumer will buy local products if the consumer chooses. We encourage that. There is one way that we can create small business and keep small business in British Columbia, and that is by creating larger business. When you open resource industries, you create mining, you have LNG and other resource industry-based jobs. You then create the small business which sells the product to the other business. You will find in rural British Columbia communities that have mines, forestry companies, which are, yes, the big business, buy as much local as they can from small business because they have what we call a partnership in local communities. In many places in rural British Columbia, because of the weather, there's a lot of things we can't buy local. So what we try to do is we try to buy from other regions. But there is also called competitiveness. And you know, from time to time, our consumers have to buy what they can afford to pay for. All the policies of government will not change how consumers spend their dollars. I would hate to think that government is going to try to tell the ordinary citizen how to spend his dollars. My colleague across the floor just yelled at me, what about meat regulations? She knows my passion for meat regulations, and I have worked very hard, and I will continue to work hard to have local. You bet you we're lucky we got 4 more years. Thank goodness we got 4 more years. And as a local consumer, Mr. Speaker, as a member of this government with passion for local communities, I know that this government will do what we can do to help local communities survive and to buy British Columbia products, remembering where the dollars and cents come from for this province to be a vibrant, economically country that will be here for a long, long time and will do the best it can for our consumers and our concitizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Member for Coquitlam-Millardville.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. You know, in my professional career as an individual couple and family therapist, there are a couple of guiding principles that we use in working with people. And the first principle, very sophisticated, did many years of university in order to get this one. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the second principle is if it works, do more of it. So here we had in this province a Buy BC program that was one of those programs that wasn't broke. It worked, and it was axed by the government in 2001. The logo awareness had reached 76% of consumers. 1,200 companies and associations used the Buy BC logo. Over 5,000 Buy BC products identified at major grocery retailers throughout the province. And somehow, at the time, the government thought it needed to be changed, and they eliminated the program and completely changed it, to the point where the uptake on the sub-licensed sales has been abysmal, with a high of 18 sales in 2003, and then in 2011 there were only 4. All told, there are 66 licensed sales. Agriculture is a substantial contributor to our economy, generating close to $40 billion annually and providing more than 315,000 jobs. This industry is worthy of government's commitment to reestablish the once successful Buy BC marketing program and requiring that taxpayer-funded bodies like hospitals buy locally grown food wherever possible. In the guiding principle of if it works, do more of the same, there are a number of provinces in 33 American states, including Washington, that use their taxpayer dollars to buy local. This government ought to do more of what works, because the crazy making that of going out and promoting our province and our tourism and our agriculture, going out of our local region and convincing others to purchase our products, our hard-earned dollars, and taking those dollars and then spending them out doesn't make any sense. If we believe in the value of the workers here, then we will buy local. That you can't continue this crazy making of we don't pay any attention to what our activities are here. So I think that this government ought to be paying attention to buying local. If we're going to go out of this region and tell others to buy our products and we're not buying it, why should they buy our products then? If we don't believe it, how can they commit to buying our products as a province? I think you need to put your money where your mouth is. I think we ought to be buying local, particularly for our publicly funded institutions. Those are taxpayer dollars that will stay in our communities and help our communities grow and do the things that we think that they need to do at a local level. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member. Member from Vancouver Falls Creek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's several aspects of this motion that I find laudable. Certainly anything that encourages our sense of community, our mutual support, our bonds of affection as British Columbians is very positive and very supportable. Also, another aspect is being conscious of our purchasing. Every consumer should be conscious of where their products come from. Consumers have a lot of power in influencing responsible behavior. Where I have some concerns is where this impulse veers into outright protectionism. Now, there's a large body of opinion among economists that protectionism can ultimately lead to lower quality of life, less competitive businesses, and international tensions, ultimately war. Globalization of trade has done much to lift people around the world out of poverty. It's done much to increase our quality of life, our prosperity. British Columbia is a highly dependent on trade. And it's also noted that highly integrated economies are unlikely to go to war. this is all something we should keep in mind as we make our policies. I note that our Buy Local program is very popular. It's, I believe, highly subscribed, and it's something that I believe we should support. What I think the best thing we can do to encourage local purchasing is to make sure we create such a supportive, friendly environment for businesses that our businesses provide the best products at the best prices, competing in the world market. And that's how we can encourage local purchasing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, member. Member for Victoria Swan Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the mover of the motion for the opportunity to debate how we can strengthen our economy by supporting small and medium-sized business in BC. This is part of a growing movement around our province through chambers of commerce, through local business, and through local government to coordinate support and to boost the marketing of local business and entrepreneurs, the suppliers and contractors who live and work in our communities, who are our neighbors. And the reason for this is that local government has realized that broadening the regional tax base and ensuring that the benefits, economic benefits in a region are as diverse as possible is furthered by keeping as much money in the local economy as possible. And that's how you enhance downtown Main Street and make your community livable. That's how you ensure there's commercial vitality. That's how you attract new people to come into your area and settle down and raise a family there and bring their skills and knowledge with them. So in a lot of communities, what this movement talks about is maximizing the marketing power of local business to compete with big box retailers. It's not because everybody is against big box retailers or that they don't have their place, but it is to support downtown vitality and to support local businesses and to support the enormous economic benefits, the leveraging effect that comes with helping small and medium-sized businesses and allowing them to compete on an equal footing for government business. There's a new marketing group in my community, Mr. Speaker, called shopvictoria.ca, and that's an excellent example of how businesses are coming together to try and improve the consumer experience in downtown Victoria and to support people who live and work in our community. So this isn't just about reaching individual consumers, although it's important, I think, to give consumers information about what it means to support local business and how they benefit and how their community benefits by doing so. Government has a role to play. And so I think this morning, really, many speakers have touched upon it. We're talking about how reforming procurement practices and giving small and medium-sized businesses a chance to compete for government purchasing of services and supplies could have a positive economic effect in this province worth billions of dollars annually. So it's long past due that this House and the provincial government examines in total its spending choices, whether that's for universities or colleges or hospitals or Crown agencies and corporations. A procurement reform agenda could help BC's economy to the positive by billions of dollars of economic activity annually and tens of thousands of jobs. And that's why we need to take it seriously, and that's why other jurisdictions are, including 33 U.S. states to the south of us. And that's a country, by the way, that we have a free trade agreement with, and they're doing it down there. My colleague from Surrey Wally mentioned research by the UBC Sauder School of Business earlier that has already looked at some of the enormous benefits that flow from local government coordinating and enhancing its procurement agreements with locally based businesses. Another study by Civic Economics reaches essentially the same conclusion. In fact, it actually says that there's a greater economic benefit than the Sauder study. It demonstrates that in the end, by advantaging local suppliers, by helping small and medium-sized enterprises in your community, 2 to 4 times more money recirculates in the regional economy. And the reasons for that, it has an economic knock-on effect, is that those companies that are able to win business with local government, and this could easily be a provincial government, if we wish to have a reform procurement agenda, are likely in turn to buy local products and services from other small and medium-sized businesses. On and on it goes. And I think people understand, and certainly the Chamber of Commerce in my community understands, that Local businesses based here in Greater Victoria spend, on average, 350% more in donations to charities, community sports organizations, all of those things that come from being community-based businesses that are rooted here in Victoria and being an active part of the community. 350%, 3.5 times more likely than the big box retailers and the out-of-province businesses. That's a significant contribution, Mr. Speaker, and I think one where the provincial government ought to look at that benefit as well, especially given how much downloading there has been to the nonprofit sector and local charitable efforts to fund sports and all kinds of things. We should be supporting local businesses. Now, local business in Canada and in British Columbia is fairly healthy, but the trend line is not good, Mr. Speaker. Half the market share, we have less than half the market share that are based in independent businesses, and it's falling. It's fallen 15% in the last few years. And Mr. Speaker, the reform agenda should go on. We should have legislation just like Ontario does to have a local food act in this House, and I look forward to that in the next sitting.
Member for Surrey Panorama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I too want to join with everyone and thank the member for this question that he's brought forward today, because I think it's a very good question, and I think it's something that we very clearly need to be looking at as government promoting the purchasing from BC businesses. And I think it's a great idea. We call it buy local. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, on my way here this morning, I passed City Hall, and as I was passing City Hall here, written in chalk on the sidewalks was buy local and a big heart around it and lots of flowers, because the message is getting out. And that's the exciting thing, is that the message is getting out, that it's a great program we have here in British Columbia, and particularly in the agricultural side of things, where we know the people, they know the soils, we know the methods that they're using in order to raise their produce. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I had the awesome privilege a couple of weeks ago to be at Lord Tweedsmuir High School in my city of Surrey. And Matt Stowe, who is Canada's current top chef, in fact made a three-course delicious dinner for us. And in creating that lunch for us, he in fact went to Surrey's Hazelmere Organic Farms. And Hazelmere Organic Farms was created by Natty King and her late husband, Gary. They created this organic farm, and it's a wonderful farm. You see their methods, you see how they work with the soils. It's well known within our community. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I discovered that beets don't have to be red from the organic farm, and it was a wonderful meal that we had. But the problem with local procurement is in fact, it's a two-edged sword. And I would bring to you, to your remembrance, Mr. Speaker, that wonderful project that was called Fast Ferries, where in fact we had a very good program, a very good idea to buy locally, a very good idea to be in fact modernizing business. It was introduced, according to the Auditor General, it was introduced as a $210 million project. The business plan was $230 million. In fact, the Auditor General said there was $462.6 million was that project. And then when it was sold for scrap, it was sold for less than $20 million. That, Mr. Speaker, is a $450 million subsidy to one business, one local business here in the province of British Columbia. I think and the BC Ferries passengers every day, every trip, are continuing to pay for that failed policy by the members opposite. I think we need to recognize the reality of two-edged swords. We have to recognize it can go both ways. I would love to bring to your attention, Mr. Speaker, the fact that when we deal with green economy and the whole green side of greening this province, we have wonderful industries. For example, in the city of Surrey, we have Endurance Wind Power, which is a great company that is sold manufacturing wind turbines for the entire world and shipping them around the world. This is not a business that the city of Surrey, in fact, can buy and purchase those wind turbines, because we do not have the sufficient wind in the city of Surrey to be able to do that. We also have very inexpensive electric power here in the province of British Columbia, again because of previous governments' wise decisions on how, in fact, they were going to grow this economy. But the challenge is that
Carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The simple reality is that what we need to be doing is we need to be creating the environment for business to thrive. And that's what we're doing in the province of British Columbia, Mr. Speaker. We're in fact lowering taxes and keeping business taxes low. Mr. Speaker, this government is working at cutting red tape for businesses so that small businesses can in fact get their products and not get hassled through all sorts of crazy regulations that stop them from doing the job that they're doing, in fact, be competing in a global economy. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to be a part of a government that is creating a positive environment for business, that is working with recognizing that we are in a global economy and creating businesses that are competitive on the global scale. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be a part of a government that is growing the economy in BC, not growing the government in BC. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, member. Member for Nanaimo.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I've been delighted to listen to the newly elected member for Surrey Panorama talk so much about his pride. Of course, I do recall there is that biblical injunction about pride goeth before the fall. But, you know, this government has 4 more years to deliver on its promises, and I'm always fascinated. I'm always fascinated when the opposition presents a motion, as the member for Vancouver Point Grey did, which is fairly straightforward and says, be it resolved that this House encourages the government to pursue policies that promote purchasing from British Columbia businesses, that it becomes such a motivator for so much passionate rhetoric from the other side. I mean, it's like they've forgotten their political forebears, for heaven's sakes. Now, I know the name Rick Thorpe has great meaning on the opposite benches. I believe he's been co-chair of Liberal campaigns, you know, he's an insider of insiders, if I can describe him that way. And I just want to read a quote from him. He was the Minister for Small Business. Fort Nelson News. Now there's rural British Columbia for you. 2006. When you buy from sellers outside British Columbia, you just help retailers elsewhere to keep their stores well stocked at the expense of local businesses. Shopping at home also supports local hospitals, schools, and important public services. I want to say congratulations. Congratulations to Rick Thorpe, who understood what it was to stand up and speak for small businesses in British Columbia, who understood how important it was to buy local, to ensure you promoted local employment. I mean, I heard the member going after the fast cats once again. Goodness, those fast cats have been brought up so often by the opposition, they've had more lives than the average cat, which is 9. Did it ever occur to the members opposite, did it ever occur to them that it might have been wiser if British Columbia Ferries was operating properly to actually build ferries in British Columbia? I mean, Germany. You know, just consider it for a moment. And I want to address my remarks, particularly through you, Honourable Speaker, to the member for Surrey Panorama who talked about small businesses locally. I got to tell you, when we were building fast cats in British Columbia, there were shipyard workers in Nanaimo shipyards earning money in my community, who were paying taxes here in British Columbia, who were buying at local businesses, who were promoting the local economy. They weren't buying it in Berlin, Honourable Speaker, I can tell you that much. So, Honourable Speaker, let's talk about this rationally and get past the rhetoric. Barry O'Neill, strong promoter through CUPE of the 10% shift. Now, Honourable Speaker, part of that 10% shift could be aided significantly if this government would just finally admit what an horrendous mistake it made for the most ridiculous of partisan purposes when it abandoned the Buy BC program. You know, Honourable Speaker, just because it comes from an NDP government doesn't mean it's all bad. This government could actually show incredible maturity. Incredible maturity. We've still got a few days left in this session, and the minister could announce that, you know what, the Buy BC program was good public policy. good public policy, and we're prepared to support it and bring it back and ensure that British Columbia farmers make money, that British Columbians eat good locally grown food, that we reduce our carbon footprint, that we enhance British Columbia's economy, and indeed, Honourable Speaker, generate greater tax revenue for the province of British Columbia. What is wrong with that concept, Honourable Speaker? What is wrong with that concept? Would it be so hard for this government just to admit for once that maybe there are some things that happen on the opposition side that are generated by the opposition benches that actually make sense? Because, you know, Honourable Speaker, I got to tell you, and I hate to bring up W.A.C. Bennett, I seem to have had to bring him up a lot lately to remind the opposition, the government benches of their political forebears. W.A.C. Bennett would never have built a ferry overseas, Honourable Speaker. He wouldn't have understood that concept. And when it came to government projects, he built them through project agreements to ensure that local union members got good jobs and paid their taxes right here in British Columbia and built this incredible province, Honourable Speaker. But you know, Honourable Speaker, I realize this government isn't anxious to be reminded of the legacy of W.A.C. Bennett. You know, I mean, they gave us the beauty of socialized hydro, you know, socialized BC Electric, stole another opposition idea. Bob Strachan campaigned against, in favor of nationalizing BC Electric. W.A.C. Bennett campaigned against it. The ink hadn't dried in the election writ. My God, Honourable Speaker, W.A.C. Bennett was nationalized.
Thank you,
BC
member.
Electric, and we had BC Hydro.
And noting the hour.
And Honourable Speaker, I only regret there's not much time left, but noting the hour, I move adjournment of the debate.
Thank you, honourable member. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion is carried. Government House Leader?
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Honourable members, you've heard the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion is carried. This House that is rising stands adjourned until 1.